Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's Infopedia Media Web Conference, Video Interop Server Deep-dive. Today's session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. If you do not consent to being part of a recorded session, please disconnect at this time. Attendees may access the web conference recording via a link that will be delivered as soon as it is available at the same location you joined today's conference. To learn more about the ways you can participate in today's event, please click the Messages button in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. We encourage you to use the Messages panel at any time to ask questions regarding content or to request support. To do so, please click the Messages button at the bottom of your screen, type your question into the white box, and click Send. Your question will appear under Comment Pending until someone responds. We have a team responding to questions today. However, due to the volume of questions and time constraints, it may not be possible to respond to all questions during today's session. If you experience any technical difficulties during today's web conference, please press F5 to refresh your console or download the video troubleshooting PDF by clicking on the download button in the bottom left of your console. If you're still having issues, please send a message and I'll be happy to help you resolve the issue. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. One moment, please, while I start the recording. Welcome to today's web conference, Video Interop Server Deep-dive, presented by Lynn Rowe, Senior Support Escalation Engineer for the Skype Business Services team. Lynn, you now have the floor.
Thanks for the introduction, Stephanie. As she mentioned, my name is Lynn Rowe. It is my pleasure today to introduce you to this new role we have within Skype for Business called Video Interop Server. Today we will introduce you to the service itself, explain to you what this is, what this service is, what space that we intend to target, what customer segments that we're intending to assist here in this with this role, and understand the Viz deployment models. Legacy video teleconferencing systems. These systems generally are Cisco or other brands. They have large deployments of these systems in their environments. Customers are in the process of deploying Skype for Business, and they're looking for ways that they can leverage these rather expensive video devices in their link infrastructure. What is VTC? Video teleconferencing systems typically used in a conference room. Sometimes you'll find these in executive boardrooms, for example. VTCs, sometimes they all have dual screens, multiple cameras, that sort of thing. Some of these are really expensive systems that will even have their own MCU so that they can host conferences directly on those units. The capabilities generally contain SIP support and H323, which allows us to leverage some of the native protocols that we also use in Skype for Business. They do support SDP for media negotiation, which again is a standard. The media support that these units broadcast are H.264. ABC codec, which is standardized in this RFC listed. What customers have been telling us about these legacy VTCs is that they have lots of them, and they don't want to lose their investment if they migrate to Skype for Business. They want to be able to continue to use these units. They'll often be under contract. They can't get out of these contracts, so they're looking to retain those investments, even though these long-standing contracts. So we're going to try to give them a reason or a solution that they can continue to leverage them. So this is just extremely important for their strategy going forward. Our answer is the role called VIS, or Video Interoperability Server. So in this release, there's a new role, much like Mediation Server. It'll be a standalone role. It'll be deployed on-premise, or the on-premise solution of a hybrid deployment. So you can have this in a hybrid deployment, but the Viz role must remain in an on-prem deployment. It is a software solution. There is no hardware aside from the server role itself that it resides on. And it is scalable, much like a mediation server role. Viz allows customers to have large deployments of these Cisco VTCs. It gives them a migration path. It'll let them leverage their existing investments in the VTCs while they introduce Skype for Business or migrate to Skype for Business. Viz simplifies the interoperability and eliminates the need for third-party infrastructure. And what I'm speaking of specifically here is the need for them to have these third-party hardware devices that host the conferences. We're going to allow them to use the native tools within Skype for Business. They'll use our MCU, which is familiar and easy to deploy. Viz and the VTC can join our meetings basically with audio and video as an audio and video endpoint, and they'll be displayed in a meeting just like another Skype for Business client. Meeting experience is quite familiar, of course, with the to any end user. They really won't know the difference. They'll think this is another Skype for Business client that's joined the meeting. At this time, peer-to-peer audio and video are both supported. So you can dial in with the phone, which will escalate basically to a video call. Some of the considerations you got to take in consideration here is that application supporting is not supported in this release, so we can only do at this time the audio and video. It does not support TIP. TIP is the protocol that would allow their systems to control the multiple cameras, to switch between video monitors, for example. This is not a component of the Viz role. It does allow them to join the meetings as a native Skype for Business client, but we're not going to give them the native controls within their protocols. The benefits are they'll leverage our infrastructure to configure and join the meetings, a central place that they can get their meeting IDs from, their PCs, and join in basically with the conference join experience, just like another Skype for Business client calling in from, or anybody calling in from the PSTN. It would be the same experience. It will reduce the complexity of configuring these units. These units are typically, they're standalone. They'll have their own MCU. A lot of them have their own MCU. A lot of them have additional hardware. So what we hope to do here is to eliminate the need for them to have to manage that infrastructure and manage it in one place. Signaling and call flows across the Viz. This is a basic diagram explaining. You'll see the VTCs on the right-hand side. Your CUCM is in the middle. This is where the systems register. The CUCM will route the calls to the Viz server itself, and then the Viz server routes the calls into the MCU or to a Skype for Business endpoint. I want to stop for a moment and just remind everybody that this is that we can actually do peer-to-peer calls as well. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but peer-to-peer calling is supported as well as joining the conference auto attendant. Essentially, the Viz server routes to the conference auto attendant and then joins you to the VMCU hosted in our infrastructure. And then other Skype for Business clients and Link clients can join into these meetings. VTCs do remain registered to the Cisco infrastructure. Video SIP trunks are what we use between CUCM and Viz. So just like a audio SIP trunk, we would have, so if you had a PSTN SIP trunk, you would visualize this as the same thing except for video and audio. These endpoints call into Skype for Business which means that outbound calling is not something that we can do at this time. So we don't have the ability to route out to these VTCs. They must dial into our conferencing solution or an endpoint to do a peer-to-peer call. Drag and drop is not supported at this time, so we're not able to take a unit, for example, within your Skype for Business client and drag and drop him into a conversation. And Viz to VTCs are not supported, so we don't allow you to call another VTC from one VTC. So they can call Skype for Business clients endpoints, but we don't have the ability to route. Again, we can't route outbound, so we can't call other VTCs that are registered through your CUCM. At a high-level infrastructure, what we've got here is Skype for Business on one side, your Viz server in the middle, and your video gateway on the other side, which in this case happens to be the VTC through CUCM. Viz acts as a back-to-back user agent, just like a mediation server, except it includes the video portion of the call-in scenario. On the video gateway side, Viz implements its necessary SIP interactions and correctly interacts with the protocols that the SIP trunk requires, in our example here being CUCM. So SDP is negotiated on their side, SDP is negotiated on our side, along with the required SIP standards that each of the two infrastructures require. Viz, again, being the mediator between these two infrastructures. So on the Skype for Business side, what we've got is the Viz role acts like a trusted role. So just like a mediation server, he is a role within the topology, and he's trusting things that come through it as being authorized to join in to Skype for Business. They must be initiated from the video gateway side at this time. So I mentioned this earlier, where your VTCs could dial into our conferences and for other users in a point-to-point calling scenario. That is the current call model. This sends up to 3 simulcast video streams. So in the case of our clients, we only send the bandwidths that are required for the particular clients that are joining the meetings. Whatever the client's capabilities are, that's what we send to reduce network load. In the case of the VTCs, they send a very large pipe with everything that it can do all at once. So we take that one big pipe and we cut it down to just the required streams for the clients that are joining. And another point is that this role is deployed as a standalone pool. It cannot be co-located with other roles like your front-end server or your mediation server. Signaling is handled either TCP or TLS. So the VTCs will add whatever additional signaling requirements are required by the two endpoints. It'll basically allows these VTCs to exist in coexist in their existing Cisco infrastructure while allowing them to route into our CAA. All they have to do in this case on the Cisco side is apply the call routing so that whenever you dial the CAA number, it knows where to send the call. That happens to be the Viz server in this case as its next hop. Mentioned this earlier, but again, just to reiterate, inbound calling only from the Cisco to Skype for Business. And the reasoning behind that is the Cisco BTCs can call the Skype for Business conference auto tenant to join the conferences They can't drag and drop. Again, we don't have the outbound calling capability because there's no routing mechanism there for the video in this case. Some of the scalability considerations. They can be deployed over a role. So when you look in the topology, and I'll demonstrate this later in a short demo, you can have a role that a viz pool that contains multiple servers, or you can have a single server pool, just like you would have, you deploy this much like a front-end pool, if you will. Transcoding the single video stream in this case here does require quite a bit of CPU, so we do ask that they be deployed in, enough hardware solution to handle the particular load. It'll need to be monitored and scaled appropriately. You can distribute the calls, of course, per call, just like an audio call. You can't spread a single call across multiple servers, but you can handle multiple calls across multiple servers in this case. So in the case of Cisco, they can route between different trunks coming into or different viz servers based on a call-by-call basis. So we can do that through dynamic DNS in this case here, if that's a solution that can be provided on the Cisco side. So static configuration, meaning that you'll have a single outbound trunk, if you will, to CUCM. Those particular trunks and routing will have a one-to-one relationship with the viz server that happens to be in the pool. We do interact with the VTCs over SIP trunks. A SIP trunk, I reiterate again, much like a audio SIP trunk going to a telephony provider, except this is a video provider. The video stream does go H.264 ABC. It sends, again, up to 3 simulcast streams on the proxy side or on the Skype for Business side of the viz server, and a single pipe going from the VTC to the Cisco infrastructure. We also support forward error correction to improve the video quality, and we have an outstanding video quality coming into out of the VTC and going into the VTC from Skype for Business clients, as you'll see also in a demo. An example topology here, I'll go and explain this. The viz server in the middle, and you see expanded there, is multiple servers. We depend on, of course, this role depends on the viz instance or the gateway instance through CUCM coming into the viz role. The viz role itself requires a registrar, so it has a next hop, just like a mediation server. So as calls come in, he has to have a place to register the call, so he has to know where to send the dial and the information. And we also require an edge server for relay auth for clients that happen to be outside of our infrastructure. They need to be able to have edge communication. Therefore, the viz server needs to have edge communication. And we'll get that through our edge. You'll see this again in the topology as I open the Topology Builder up and demonstrate how we configure this. You'll see that the viz server itself requires the SIP trunk. It'll also require an edge if you want to have clients external to your organization being able to connect. And of course, you'll see the registrar, the next hop registrar in the configuration. Some of the topology considerations. It must be standalone. You cannot, you can have multiple pools and multiple servers within the single pools. Or you can have a single standalone role. If you just have a couple of these in your organization, that should be fine. It is the next hop from CUCM, so the CUCM routing will take its telephony, so its dial-in mechanism will route that particular phone call as its next hop to the viz server itself, or whichever, however it connects to through DNS, for example, on a per call basis. It would come into the viz server within the pool. Viz sends the media to the VTC directly. It does not route around the Viz, so it cannot become an ICE candidate. This is kind of an important concept. We talked about the edge configuration, is that this unit can't be a ICE candidate. It does not support, these things do not support our ICE solution, so they won't be able to register to edge, for example. But the Viz server can, so all of your audio and video will be routed into the Viz server. The Viz server will then act as a client that can be edge connected, therefore allowing clients outside the organization, for example, that are dialing in from external to be able to communicate with these VTCs over the edge server. So the video gateway is dependent on the Viz pool. This is a concept here of your trunk support and into one relationship. A particular video gateway can have multiple trunks. It can have a single trunk to one and only one Viz pool at a time. A particular Viz pool can interact with multiple video gateways. So you can have multiple SIP trunks, for example, and routing out through multiple Viz servers and Viz pools. Client considerations. Viz cannot transcode to RT video, which means that video from and to a Link 2010 endpoint cannot be displayed in a VTC via Viz server. DH264 video from a VTC cannot be displayed again. It's just like inbound. It cannot be displayed on a Link 2010 endpoint. Therefore, we would have our best experience using the Link 2013 or Skype for Business client. So we do use H264 in a simulcast configuration, if you will, the three trunks, the three video capabilities on the clients, whichever they request. So the optimal solution, like mentioned, is Link 2013 and Skype for Business. Some of the hybrid interoperability caveats, we'd like to mention that you cannot take one of these VTCs and register Viz into a conference that's being hosted in the cloud. It has to be basically an on-premise solution. Other hybrid users can join in. So if you've got somebody that's been moved to the cloud or moved to online, you can have them join into a meeting, but we can't go the other direction. We can't dial into a CA that's sitting in the cloud. So the reason this is because we require a SIP video trunk, not an audio trunk. We don't support the drag and drop solutions. So we can't dial into a video conference that's hosted in the cloud because there's no video SIP trunk to the cloud. There's only audio. Okay, so that basically allows us to join in Skype for Business enterprise conferences only. So support for joining federated conferences is also not part of the solution. So if you have another company, for example, that's hosting a conference, you cannot dial into its CAA. You must dial into those solutions. So federated partners can join into a conference hosted in your environment, which the Viz will join, but you can't go the other direction because the outbound calling capabilities. This also goes with peer-to-peer calling. This is a reminder. So voice and video to to the same SIP trunk, and I'll demonstrate this again in our topology. But one of the things that we'd consider is that for dialing capabilities, we can, in the topology, we can have a SIP trunk for the video interop server and for your PSTN call-in through your mediation server have the same name, so it can be the same trunk if that particular trunk is capable of both audio and video. This is something that you would find would be a block in the topology. Otherwise, we can't have the same names, so the same objects in two places. But in the case of Viz, we do permit you to have both your outbound trunks for audio and for audio video be the same endpoint. So we will define these trunks. This is something that, in addition to the Viz server itself, that will be defined in the topology. We'll also define these SIP trunks. Again, I will demonstrate this in a demonstration momentarily. So the testing that we've done is in this list here. These are the models that we have actively tested. It does not mean that other units will not work. These are just happens to be the list that we've tested, and so as long as they support this particular firmware version on the units, the chances are decent that they'll be able to communicate as well. And we will continue to test and expand this list as needed. So I'm going to jump over here to a quick demonstration. In my demonstration here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a conference I've actually already started. And in this conference, I've got my CAA pulled up. I will be using the dial pad on the VTC itself to call into both a peer and to a conference CAA. At the same time, I'll be demonstrating to you how that tracing can be done on the Viz server, and then I'll go into the actual topology definitions. So I've already got this set up and running. Give me a moment while I get the demo started. So what you see here now is the client that I actually have a conference already started, and I've got my dial-in conferencing information pulled up here, and I'll begin the dial-in process at this time, and you'll see this unit dial in. So the experience that you're seeing here is just like a telephone call I'm making, but I'm using the touchpad on the VTC itself. I'm now entering the conference ID listed here. So you'll see this VTC join in. And that's the experience. I'll go ahead and disconnect this just for your demonstration purposes. So now you've seen this conference join solution here. I can also call into the user itself here. And if you'll give me a moment here, I'll just dial my endpoint so that you're able to see the inbound call coming in. So I've just got an inbound call popping up here. I'm just going to accept this so you can see the experience is the same as you would have from any other client joining in. And you see my call coming in. And that's it. Now I'll jump over and walk through some of the tracing. I've already staged this tracing, so I'll demonstrate some of the diagnostic tools that we have here at our disposal. Just like a inbound audio call coming in from a PSTN, I would treat it the same way. I've run Netmon here, and I've captured the conversation as it was inbound. And as you can see, I'm calling into the CAA at this time. You see a typical inbound call, except for video to the VTC, or to the Viz server from the VTC. And you can see that this is just straight up SIP. And you can see my typical request headers that I have here in a typical SIP conversation for inbound. You see my SDP, and I'll also demonstrate how this looks in the native tools for Skype for Business. But you can see my session attributes here for the SDP is listed, so I can troubleshoot these codecs as they're inbound. And I've simply filtered here on the Viz service here and drilled down to my SIP conversation for the port in which that I know that this is inbound, which is 5060. At the same time, I will have been monitoring this, if you will, with the Skype for Business logging tool. For those not familiar, this is a new tool that replaces, it's still CLS, but we've given you a nice UI here. And in this tool, you can see the new tags. We've got Video Interop Server for Diagnostic. I've also included S4 in SIPStack, just like I would for an inbound audio call. And in this inbound audio call, I've picked the two relevant servers, and I've started the logging here. So this essentially helped me set up the scenario and start the scenario to logging. I've then stopped it after the call scenario, and I'm going to show here in this inbound call. This is what you saw on the calling scenario, the first calling scenario that I set up. So if we'll notice that this is S4 inbound from the VTC, and just to demonstrate the typical SDP that this unit would come in with, it's showing the Tandberg, and of course it's native SDP. Okay, it's H263 as we expected. Now, in the same call flow, again, I've highlighted this just for the purposes of the demo here. But I've got the outbound call from the Viz server now going to the front-end server. This is the particular call scenario, and you can see that its SDP would be a typical, just like another Skype for Business client. You see the ICE candidates. And of course, then you're going to see the H264. And I've got my final invite out here with the final negotiated codec for video. So again, this is also H264. And then we can do whatever diagnostics that we feel we need or necessary to troubleshoot a particular call flow. Next, I will, oh, by the way, on the Viz server, I just want to point out that the deployment scenario, essentially, once it's been added to the topology, you'll go run the setup routine on the Viz server itself, just like you would any other role within your Skype for Business infrastructure. And this is really the Skype for Business Interop Server role is the only thing installed here on this server. Just like a standalone mediation server, you would have a pretty simplistic role to be installed here, plus the replication, of course, the tools to get your CMS replicated over. I will now flip over to the topology that I've got pulled up, and we'll walk through setting up a Viz server. So I've got Topology Builder open here, and in Topology Builder, I'm going to go ahead and drill down to Video Interop Pools. And I'm simply going to, let me just go ahead and point out that we also have down here video gateways and video SIP trunks, which are not populated at this time, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to add one. typical wizard within Skype for Business. I'll call this Biz1. And I'm going to go ahead and leave this as a single pool. If I had multiple pools, I'd simply be prompted for the particular FQDS within the organization. I'm going to go ahead and leave this a single pool. And as you see in the next top selection here, this is going to be your, another point that may not have highlighted is this has to be a Skype for Business pool. It cannot be a 2013 pool. It needs to be a Skype for Business pool. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this enterprise pool here as my next hop. And the edge selection, again, this is where the Viz server will need this edge selection if he's going to have clients that are being able to join or making point-to-point calls, for example, to your link or Skype for Business endpoints. So I'll go ahead and select that and finish. It's pretty much as simple as this. So you see I've got my pool, I've got my edge server, I've got my next hop pool, and you don't see any video trunks here yet. It's because we haven't created them yet. We don't create them from here. We're going to go down to video gateways, and I'll go ahead and configure a new video gateway here. We'll call this Cisco. Sorry, I need to give this an FQDN. And I'll leave this default selections. And here I can pick, of course, TLS or TCP, depending on however I want that to work. I'll pick the particular Viz server that I want this to be interacting with. And it's as simple as this. I'll simply publish my topology. And you'll notice, by the way, that the SIP video trunk was created here at the same time. So if I go back up here now, you'll see this association of the video trunk in the Viz pool itself. Also want to demonstrate one of the things I talked about was the coexistence, if you will, of the audio and the video SIP trunks. So I've actually got a PSTN trunk called 7GW here. You'll see that if I go down here and I configure another, this does allow me to have this side-by-side configuration of audio and video SIP trunks that match. And that's an important concept to understand, that calling to the same SIP trunk might have audio and video depending on the particular Cisco capabilities on the back end. And that's in a nutshell. We'd simply do our publish topology here, and that again runs setup once the topology was published. I'm not going to actually kick this off at this time. And that's it for our demo today. I would like to pose questions here. We did have a team in the background that was helping me answer these questions. I see many of them have been answered, and I'll just kind of browse through some of the questions, see if I can answer them verbally here. So one of the questions here about on-premise or a hybrid. So again, this allows us to deploy the Viz as an on-premise solution only. If you want them to be, so let me see here. So if you want them to be part of a full-blown hybrid solution, yes, I mean that can be done. They just need to be, the Viz server needs to point to an on-premise next hop, and then your hybrid client, anybody joining in from the cloud, will simply join a conference that's hosted in your on-prem solution. That is the way that'll work. So how many types of video, how many types of video? So you've got your 8263. There's 3 capabilities on the inbound call. So depending on whatever client capabilities are requested, the Viz server will split that out. So I see the question here about being able to do a voice call out through CUCM like a Link 2013 without the Viz. So in this case here, without Viz, you wouldn't have any of the audio-video capabilities. So that would be something you would configure in the case of your Cisco infrastructure would dial in through a mediation server. You would only have the capability of your audio conferencing. There would be no video stream. So as far as Mac clients are concerned, a point here is that those Mac clients can join into a conference just like any other client. Their experience would be no different than a Mac client joining into a conference hosted by other Skype for Business clients. A question here about the different video streams. So the VTC is going to stream in a single video stream in its native environment, and then of course the clients on the inside are going to get whatever they request. So different streams. Really the audio and the video come into the same stream. It's not split out. I may have confused that whenever I was talking about the particular trunks. So for inbound, I'm talking about the difference between audio trunks and the audio-video trunks. In the case of VTCs, the audio and the video comes in together. It does not split out through a different trunk. If there's any question about that. So a question here about the one video gateway per Viz pool. That's not the case. Actually, we can have, much like we did in the case of trunks with mediation, you can create FQDNs pointing to the same Cisco endpoint to give your fault tolerance of the different video pools. You'd simply assign the routing for those particular or associations of the trunks to the different gateway objects by FQDN. They can point to the same IP address in this case. A question about the client being able to join meetings hosted in the cloud. No, this does not work in this case. We must dial into a conference hosted in your on-prem. It does not mean, of course, people from federated organizations or your cloud clients or people that are migrated to the cloud cannot join in. They can do that. So there's a question here about configuring CUCM. We've provided some guidelines in our setup document that will be published that gives you some of the basic instructions on how you configure CUCM, but that's something that you'll need to work with your CUCM folks. They're going to configure this VTC as the next hop, and all of the rest of that configuration will be done within Skype for Business. So CUCM is a requirement in this case here. There's no way for the devices to directly come into Skype for Business without a routing mechanism on the Cisco side. So there does have to have a way for you to be able to take that phone number that you're entering in the VTC. It has to have a typical PSTN-like routing because of the dial-in conferencing. It needs to know where to send this inbound call for video. So the question about the presence, no, that's not we're not registering directly into Skype for Business this time, so the presence is not there. So a question about DTMF, certainly DTMF is needed. So for IVRs, I mean, this is a typical situation. You saw me dial into a conference auto attendant. That was DTMF that I was using to actually key in the conference ID whenever I joined the conference. Load balancing is supported across BTCs. Again, you would have multiple Cisco trunks or video SIP trunks on the Cisco side, or a single one's represented by the same IP in multiple FQDNs. That's how you would achieve that. There are a couple of questions here I'm not sure how to answer about DMA and RMX, but hopefully one of my team members in the background answering questions can look that up and answer it, or we'll have to get back with you. So the CUCM resources and the ability, so I'm not aware of any kind of ABS record that we can include for the VTC's endpoints. To point out, of course, that these VTCs are dialing into Skype for Business. There's no outbound calling, so I'm not sure what the point of the the contact would be. Perhaps in the event that you want to be able to do reverse number lookup so you know the inbound call, I mean, you could certainly create a contact with the phone number so that it might display a name. That could be a solution. Got about 10 minutes left here for the particular meeting. So I'll continue to answer these questions best I can. Video type. So we've actually got, again, one pipe coming in. It's whatever the client endpoint capabilities are, I believe is the correct way to answer this question. So how many types of video will Viz support? It's one H23, I'm sorry, 323 coming in. That's what we support. So a question about the outbound calling. Would we be able to do a voice call out to CUCM like a 2013? So certainly a PSTN call, if the Cisco was able to route to one of these units for audio only and they were able to answer, it would not involve the Viz role itself. That would just be outbound calling in this case. You would not achieve any video in this case. So another question about MAC clients being excluded. No, this is not exclusion. They'll experience the same thing that they experience in joining a conference from other Skype for Business clients at hosted meetings. So a question about using the same SIP trunk. So in the case, I think what you might be asking here is about the matching SIP trunks. So in the case of your outbound routing mechanism within Skype for Business, the outbound calling can mirror. I mean, you can have the VTCs inbound calling from the VTCs for audio and video. So if they have a audio only call, they can come into the mediation server at the same time. Videos calls could come from the same endpoint and route into the Viz server is what I mean by that. So Viz is for audio and video only. It's not for the audio calls. You wouldn't use just audio calls. You would not use the VTC to route into Viz for those calls. But to me, what would be the point? You want the video, so I'm not sure what you would benefit from this. So the question is about routing. Is there a routing that you need to configure in the case of calling? I believe you're looking for, again, much like you would have a dial dialing rules and such. And because we're not doing the outbound calling, this is not important at this time. So you don't have a lot of configuration you need to do on the Skype for Business side because the calls are coming inbound from the VTCs. All of the routing is handled natively through your existing PSTN routing, for example, normalization. If your trunk normalizes that phone number, it will find that contact internally in your organization in its inbound routing mechanism. So the question about why it wasn't merged with the mediation role, this is a performance consideration. So we're actually, mediation server has its own capabilities. We wouldn't want to overload that with video in this case. Video transcoding requires quite a bit of CPU, so that's why we want to have this its own separate role. So there's a question about Cisco VCS for signaling. So in this particular scenario, if you can still integrate your VCS the same way you did before. We're giving you this new tool called Viz, which is really going to simplify all of that configuration. If you can route your calls coming into the Viz role, you've achieved a much easier configuration on the CUCM side and for the Skype for Business side in this case. All right, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and hand this back over to Stephanie. I appreciate your time and consideration while we demo these new features and talk about the new investments we're making with Video Interop Server. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a great day.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We hope that you have found today's information helpful. If you enjoyed today's web conference or have feedback on how we can provide you with a better event, please let us know by completing our survey. Please click the messages button to find the link to the survey now. It's on a scale of 5 to 1, with 5 being the highest. As a reminder, you may access the web conference recording via a link that will be delivered as soon as it is available. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenter, Lynn. This concludes today's web conference. You may now disconnect.